Peter Coffin on the show as well. I guess I should say who he is before you ask him questions. He is a YouTube sensation.
Oh, geez. You keep getting more.
I know. We'll just keep getting more and more.
The most popular channel on YouTube.
He is a YouTube god. And he's here, and he's going to talk about his stuff. You can ask him questions. Email us, Watson at jwat, JWAT, 1tproductions.com. And, I think we should just stop talking and get right back into it.
Stop talking.
We should just stop talking and just let silence be our guide.
Listen to the sound of silence by Simon & Garfunkel.
By Simon and Garfunkel. Awesome.
A song that needs promoting. No one's ever
heard of it, and Simon and Garfunkel.
It's very quiet. That's the problem.
Exactly. All right, so we were talking about your YouTube channel, and you can check him out at youtube.com/Peter Coffin. We were talking about his influences, and I thought you were trying to say something, or you were trying to lick my eyeball. Either one. But we were talking about his first videos that got him noticed, and he mentioned that he had worked on The Annoying Orange. But now we wanted to kind of get more into, you mentioned what inspires your videos is topics that you hear about and that you talk with people or that you feel are important to you. So now, before we get too far into that, I do want to talk about, it seems that, sorry, I'm kind of scattering around here. I just want to make sure, because I feel like this is important for you. We noticed that you have, with your fan base, you really like to communicate with them on Twitter, on YouTube. Why do you find that's important with YouTube and you personally?
For me, there's actually two answers to that. There's the branding answer and the personal answer. I'll start with the personal answer. Personally, I don't really look at people as, for lack of a better word, fans.
Okay.
I kind of like to just talk to people and find out what they think of things. I kind of like to bounce ideas off people. A lot of people will say, I'm in it for the fans, and I think that if you say that phrase, you're almost proving that you're not, because you're calling them fans. You're not calling them supporters. You're not calling them friends even. You're looking at them in a power dynamic situation. Right. Where I am the creator and you are my worshipers. And I don't look at things that way.
Okay.
And I think Twitter is probably, because it's so quick, and it's very hard to miss things if you tag them properly, like with my username or with a hashtag, whatever. You tend to not miss things. Mm-hmm. So I like to talk back and forth with people who like my stuff, which if anybody on there wants to follow me right now, it's at Peter Coffin.
And he has some really great issues that he brings up, and you can talk with him. So I definitely recommend
issues of
that.
Nintendo power.
There you go. There it is. So now this is where it kind of gets into the opposite. I mean, YouTube. I mean, there's a lot of beautiful and wonderful people on the internet.
There's well,
right. I said that sarcastically. So as someone who's is known on the internet, how do you deal with the negativity and the so-called haters? I did I did little things with my hands, just so everyone knows.
Like H, the number 8, ers.
Well, I don't like to use that.
That's what you mean.
Sure, I guess.
Newfangled hatred.
Yes.
I think what I like to do is I like to first capture it, like either screen capture it or archive it in some way. I think a lot of the time people need to see how other people act. I don't necessarily like responding to it, but I like to show people it, just to be like, this is how people are. Please don't be like this. I just like, at this point in time, I've been doing it for 8 years. They don't bother me like at one point in time they bothered me. I'm pretty desensitized to it. And I've had issues that have come up during my career that have involved a lot of hatred towards me.
Uh-huh.
And to be honest, at this point it doesn't bother me so much. There have been times that it bothers me. We are, going to talk about Gamergate, and there's been people through this that have bothered me. And, what you eventually have to get to mentally is saying, I'm doing something that people are responding to, whether or not that's they like it or don't like it. And when somebody doesn't like something, when somebody spends their time verbally or in text actually explaining to you how much of a blank being any curse word you can imagine.
Sure. Insert your own thought.
Yeah, why you are that. In my opinion, they really have too much time on their hands. They're not creating stuff. They're not coming up with things. They're not contributing. Whether or not they have a job, I can't tell you, but I'd guess no.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting because, we used to have this thoughts in our minds, and, maybe it was back in the day, if you had brute strength, usually that meant you have power. Nowadays, with the internet, it seems like people think because they get to say something without you beating them up or like actually hurting them, that they get to say whatever they want. And it's now starting to seem like for the lack of a better term, nerd or geek has become one of the worst bullies / people out there.
Well, the funny thing about that is, like, when I was first getting into video games, like, it was the way I made a lot of friends. I didn't have a lot of friends when I was little. I was a bit of a weird kid, as I said earlier when we were talking about the fact that I have literally hours and hours and hours of audio tapes of me talking about Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yes.
At age 6, that's what I did with my time.
Awesome.
Maybe also up to age 9.
If it helps you at all, I used to radio DJ the oldies station, and I would record myself and do it. So if that helps you at all,
I wasn't doing it to anyone though. Okay. Like, nobody was listening to it. It was literally I had a video or an audio tape recorder, and I was talking into it about Sonic the Hedgehog for hours.
Gotcha.
But my point was, I got into, sort of talking to people through video games. Like I said, I was a bit of a weird kid. I didn't have a lot of friends. I made friends through that because it felt like a place where you'd include. It was much more inclusive than, say, football. And I don't mean that to be like, I hate football players, so stupid jerks. But at that point in time, like, sort of less popular pursuits were kind of more inclusive seeming to me. Whereas now it's kind of really not like that.
Yeah, right.
Now they're kind of exclusive. They often bully. They're kind of like sometimes horrifically racist.
Right,
like,
I know.
I don't understand it. They're very sexist. They're very... And it's not like all people who are into the nerdier side of things are like that, but the most vocal seem to be.
Right.
It's just a shame. It creates a really bad, nasty stereotype because I would say that the majority of gamers or people that may be more introverted or less social are really nice people.
Usually. Whenever I've met somebody who I talk to about video games, I always think, I'm at home.
Exactly.
To put it in the most, like, sappy possible way. I feel like I can talk to people about video games. I can talk to people about, Star Wars or just name something that's more nerd-oriented. And I can probably talk about that with a person easier than I can when somebody's like, did you see the game on Saturday? I'm like, no. Did you see Star Wars on Saturday? No.
Yeah.
No, they didn't. They did not watch Star Wars on Saturday. But, I feel like that's the kind of person I'm more at home with. But the most vocal of that kind of person seem to be very, very awful. And like you said, the more kind of introverted people tend to not be that way. But there's a few people who are just not introverts at all, who have hijacked it, kind of, and made it about them, and kind of, it sucks. I don't like it.
I'm going to agree with that.
I don't like it very much at all. Thank you.
Hello and welcome back to the Game Movie Empire show, brought to you by Fringe Radio. I am Arthur. I am here with Watson and Peter Coffin. We're just talking about, for those of you that just joined us, we're talking about Peter Coffin, his YouTube channel, and we're kind of talking about, haters online and, on YouTube and that sort of thing. what I wanted to get into, for better or worse, is Gamergate. You know,
Yeah.
That's the elephant in the room for maybe a lot of people.
Yeah.
But tell us a little about it, Peter, and maybe just how it started and how you got involved, and kind of your just general thoughts about it.
Well, Gamergate is an issue that started with a developer by the name of Zoe Quinn made a game called Depression Quest. And I don't know if you've heard about it.
I have.
It's an interesting game. Like, it's not very standard. It's about kind of mental issues. It's different, and a lot of people responded negatively to it. And so you started with kind of the haters gonna hate crowd responding to her, and then her ex boyfriend, I believe. I don't know if they were ever. For some reason, it's nagging me in the back of my head. Like, did we already get a call?
I'll see.
Let him finish.
So anyway, long story short, her boyfriend made this post that was very, very inflammatory about her, spread it on 4chan, which I don't know if anyone here thinks that 4chan is good. I hope not. But they latched onto it. It was a lot of false accusations that made her sound like she was doing some rather unethical things that promoted her game. So she could make money. But if you think about it, the game was free, for one. Depression Quest is still free. You can't buy Depression Quest. It's a free game. But anyway, actor Adam Baldwin saw a video regarding this, posted it, and called it Gamergate, because if something is controversial, you put gate at the end of it. That's why. So anyway, it basically turned into a big harassment campaign around her. Then they've tried to paint it as it's about ethics in games journalism. I don't know if you've heard that meme, but it's not. It's basically a big harassment campaign against people. I got involved with it because I've been involved with online harassment before. It's just generally not a very good thing.
Gotcha. Well, I believe we.
Want to take a phone call?
I believe we have a
Let's
phone
do it.
caller. Hello, you're on the air.
Hey, this is Harv. How you guys?
Doing good.
Hey,
How are
Harv,
you?
what's up?
Hey, brother. This online harassment, that's on the computer, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Typically, I do it with a cell phone and a bottle of Jack Daniels.
This is.
Well, don't drink and dial. Anyway,
That's right. That's right, Harv.
And Harv, I can imagine you're old school. After you get on there with the bottle and the phone, you give them an address where they can meet you.
yes, sir, I do. And then I think later, oh my gosh, someone's going to beat me up. So then I work out of town for a while. Anyway, I was pretty good at Pong. I'll tell you that.
Pong?
Yeah. You
Yeah.
guys remember Pong?
Oh, of course.
I remember Pong.
Yeah.
They've made
No.
various incarnations of Pong through the years. Like there's a 3D one on PlayStation.
Oh, that's right.
That was weird.
That was weird.
Yeah, but I think he's talking about the one where you'd hook it up to the crappy black and white TV
Yeah.
through the
Yeah.
rabbit ears, and you'd have, it was a lot of fun.
It's a fun
Hey.
game.
Do they still make the machines?
They make like
They don't make machines anymore.
They make like reproductions of like where
Yeah.
you could play a whole bunch of Atari stuff.
But it's all on a little like circuit board now.
Yeah, exactly. It's much smaller than what we were used to back in the day.
Well, I had this little hamburger joint over in Grapevine, Texas, and had a couple pool tables and a meteorite game and Berserk and one other. I can't remember what it was. Man, it made a lot of money. Paid the rent.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Quarter by quarter. Which, by the way, the quarter's worth nothing now. I don't think you pay the rent now.
Yeah, you'd have to have $1 in there. It was before the Mario Brothers, I think,
Yeah.
by about 10 years maybe.
Awesome.
Uh,
That was before the internet.
it was.
That was before the bulletin board services and Prodigy.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yes.
Two keep saying things I don't know. It'll make you sound smarter than you are. Whatever.
America Online?
Did you have a good
I've heard-
Christmas?
It was wonderful.
Oh, that's
Everybody had to work, and no one called me because I turned my phone off. Gosh,
Oh,
it was sweet.
Did you rip it out of the wall?
No, I got to sell. No, I don't have one of them, smart aleck. No, I got to sell. Wow, why you just call me a curmudgeon?
Hey, we got a bunch of them stacking up. I'm going to let you go for a little bit.
Love you guys, man.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Arv.
All right,
Talk
take
to you
care,
later.
brother. You know, that is true, though. I mean, it's so easy to get online and spam and all that other stuff. But, you know, I mean, not that many years ago, just like you said, you'd pick up the phone call and say, well, if you want to work it out, here's where you can meet me, and I'll be there, and let's work it out. You know?
Yeah, no, that's very true.
Throw down fisticuffs.
Yeah, they're in fisticuffs.
Or at least have like an online like Street Fighter match to,
Yeah.
to bout it out or something.
Yeah, and then whoever loses is banned from Twitter and YouTube for a year or something. I don't know.
Something.
But,
We need to come up with something to handle these types of disputes.
Yes, definitely. Well, yeah, so we were talking about Gamergate. We have a couple questions that you are up here. So then you mentioned that after you've heard about this and you started to get into it and involved in it, what did you do to support it?
Well,
Or support it, or you know,
I
express your
basically
opinion on it?
tried to take everything that was going on and make sure that my followers knew about it. So I'm not really I wasn't at the center of it by any means. I'm male, and most of the targets were female. B, I am not a game developer.
Right.
Obviously, I'm very into video games. I'm very into I don't like to call it a culture anymore because they've pretty much ruined that for me.
Right. Yeah.
But that a lot of my life does revolve around video games. I consider it art. I consider it important. I consider the things that people try to do with video games, especially independent games that are different and weird, like Depression Quest, or I don't know if you've ever heard of Gone Home.
Oh, I love Gone
which
Home.
is a great game.
Yeah, I actually got it and beat it in a day and a half.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
It's a little less weird out there than some of them because you still kind of have the first-person controls.
Right.
So it's something you're a little more familiar with than some. A lot of people are calling them alternative games now.
Right.
But it's still has drawn a lot of ire as well. That sect of people is kind of not that big into the indie game scene. They like to say that they are, but they aren't. They'll defend AAA developers all day, just all that AAA.
Right.
Is because that's what's successful. And the weird thing about this is it almost seems like success, big, rampant, large corporate type success, is what's important to them, which is doesn't make sense to me as a fan of the idea of art.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe it's big corporate executives. That's the people who.
Oh, they've kind of encouraged Gamergate in so many ways. I'm sure that there are people in large companies that are in Gamergate that have kind of stoked the fire, because it's kind of it's not something that benefits people who don't have a support system behind them, don't have PR teams, don't have all that type of stuff. It's kind of a very anti-individual movement, whereas if you're somewhere from a corporation with a PR department, and that seems to be kind of their definition for success if you get into an argument with some of them.
Yeah, sure. And Gamergate, at least to me, because I first found out about it actually from you. So, and then I went on and researched it and stuff like that, and it seems
that
like
felt bad.
Well,
when you research it, it's just
yeah, I was like,
oh my gosh, this is what people
are arguing about. Yeah, and so what it seems to now has kind of turned into what I've noticed. I don't know if you've noticed this as well, but not only has it been sexism towards towards developers, female, it's actually turned into what is being put into games as of late of if we have a woman protagonist,
Yeah.
event, she's has very little clothing, and she still gets saved by males or whatever. Do you feel like, how do you feel like sexism is being treated, and how do you feel like women are being treated in video games?
Very not well enough. Like
Okay.
there have been people that have made some steps. Like even there are people that will argue that the rebooted Tomb Raider is still problematic, and it isn't in a few ways. But you can also kind of look at that game and see that there's a big kind of, we need to change our tone here. There are a lot of women that are gaming. Actually, 47% of gamers are, and the majority of that number of women are PC gamers, not casual gamers. Like, that's the thing, that if you say 47% of women play video, or 47% of gamers are women, the person will usually come back to you with, yeah, on iPhones, they're playing Candy Crush, yeah. Which, that's a gamer. As much as you may not like those games, that's still a video game.
Yeah, true.
That makes you a gamer. But even so, it's not even the majority of women playing that. They're playing PC games, and they're playing online RPGs primarily, which is, in my opinion, about as niche as you can go in gaming. Like, RPGs are not, like, I'm not saying they're not cool, because they are cool.
Right.
But, like, they're not first-person shooters. They're complex. They're, like, again, not that a first-person shooter can't be complex. They can.
Right.
But typically an RPG is kind of the more nerdy within the nerdy pursuit.
No, definitely.
Versus Bejeweled.
Yeah, which, by the way, I play probably...
I do, too. It's
I
calming.
play so much.
It's calming.
I play Bejeweled Blitz. Do you play Blitz?
It's Bejeweled.
I play Blitz because I like the 1 minute, go in, go crazy, beat everybody on Facebook. I love Bejeweled Blitz.
Nice.
But, in my opinion, that's playing video games as much as playing Final Fantasy VII for the 900th time is, which I still do.
Yeah. There's another game that
Yeah.
we didn't talk about.
That's 1997 right there.
Oh, there you go.
That's a ways back.
So one thing that I'd like to talk about is, talk about Tomb Raider and how it's changing the tone. I never actually played any of the old Tomb Raiders. I really loved the new one.
Yeah, I thought it was, I actually liked it better than Uncharted, and I am a crazy Uncharted fan.
Yeah, that's a hard one for me. But
Well, here's the thing. The next Uncharted will probably be better than that Tomb Raider, but this Tomb Raider, I feel like, took some of the concepts Uncharted had and made them over the top, and I think that was exactly what needed to be done with that kind of game, because Uncharted became very much about the set pieces.
Yeah.
And Tomb Raider felt a little bit more puzzle-oriented, whereas the puzzles in Uncharted are a little not that difficult.
Right.
No. Well, I think what's really funny is that, Uncharted takes from Tomb Raider takes from Uncharted,
Well,
and
Uncharted
Uncharted takes from Tomb
Yeah,
Raider.
exactly. That's what it's going to be, from now on, too. Like, Tomb Raider basically is the original Uncharted. If you really want to talk about it, Uncharted is a ripoff of Tomb Raider.
Sure.
But Tomb Raider is a ripoff of Pitfall.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, there you go. Which is a ripoff of Indiana Jones.
Yes, exactly. It is a ripoff of Indiana Jones, which is not even a game.
Yeah.
There was a game for it,
Indiana
but
Jones is a ripoff of old 1920s serials, from what
it
I
is,
understand.
basically.
So, yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah,
So,
Oh, yeah,
what
there
we've
is
learned is that everything is derivative,
It's true.
which is not a bad thing.
No, definitely not. But,
No, go ahead.
Okay, so with Tomb Raider changing its tone, I actually want to talk a little about just what does make a game sexist, or any type of media for that reason.
The jury's really out on that at the moment, because there's stuff like Bayonetta, which I don't know if you've ever played that.
Yeah.
I
There are
haven't.
people that consider that to be monstrously sexist, and then there are people that consider it sexually empowering.
Yeah.
Both ways.
What do you think
have it.
about that, though?
I think I'm somewhere in the middle of that, because there's stuff in it that I think is pretty problematic. There's a forced quote-unquote scene. I don't know if I want to get too graphic
Sure, totally.
with stuff, but there's stuff in there that I don't think is appropriate at all for
Yeah.
a
'Cause-
game. But at the same time, the character itself in-world. And when I say in-world, I mean the character's motivations as a character, not the character's motivations as the writer said. Because there's a big difference there. There's a big discussion that we don't need to have. If you don't want to.
And what I kind of wanted to bring up, and Ryan makes he says this, and this kind of goes in what I want to talk about, or what I wanted to say. He says there shouldn't be regulations on character design, and if a developer wants to make a game like Dragon's Crown, that it's their idea, and I mean that's their freedom. What I wanted to ask you, and what I think is if a female character has big breasts but is still kicking butt, does that make it a sexist game, or is it more a fine line where, let's say, a James Bond type game where a main character, I guess we're gonna have to come back to it. But we'll have to get more into that. But basically, we'll think about what makes a sexist game, and we'll come back to it. So we'll take a minute break.
That's a good topic.
Hello and welcome back to Game and Movie Empire, brought to you by Fringe Radio. I'm Arthur. I'm here with Watson and Peter. We are talking about sexism in video games and entertainment. We were just about to get into it before our break, but Peter, what makes a game sexist?
Well, we were talking about, you were saying just before the break, is like large breasts sexist? Is that, because they do that a lot in games. And, here's the thing. It's not inherently automatically sexist to have large breasts, because there are a lot of different women on the planet with a lot of different body types. That's the problem, is that there are a lot of different women with a lot of different body types, but yet in the game, there's usually one woman, she's usually white, she's usually skinny, and she usually has big boobs.
Right.
Those are the problems right there.
And maybe you have to save her. I don't know.
Yeah, that's often a problem as well. But here's the thing. If you had as many female characters as you do male characters, if they all had agency over what they were doing, they had their own thoughts, their own goals, and they all had things to do. If you rescued one of them, that wouldn't be that bad, because you would have a lot of female characters with a lot of different personalities, a lot of different body types, hopefully, some with, if you're going to use boobs, some with large boobs, some without large boobs, some that are a little heavier, some that are not, some that are short, some that are tall, some that are people of color, some that are not people of color, some that because there's a lot of people on the planet, and half of them are women.
Right.
But if you look at the cast of any game or movie or book or whatever media you want to say, there's one or two women, and they usually serve the same functions. The main woman is usually the love interest, and the other one is either the friend or the sister. It's like, that's the problem. It's not any one body type specifically. The problem is that they use one body type specifically.
Gotcha.
And they use it for marketing to men. They don't use it for marketing to women.
Gotcha. So that makes it a lot more sense to me, is that it's not, so I just want to clear up what you're saying. You're saying that just because it's not the fact that they're putting women with big boobs in games. It's the fact that they're just putting women with big boobs in
That
games.
is the Twitter way of saying it.
Yes.
The 140 character way of saying what I just said that took too long.
Right. And, Courtney on the chat here brings up a really good point. She says, just because someone's sexy doesn't mean that it's sexist. And I tend to agree with that. So, but and
sexy can be very empowering, and oftentimes sexy is a woman taking control.
Right.
In her life.
Regardless of what she's wearing, or regardless of, her body type, like if she's, yeah, exactly. So
it's often control. Like, it's not necessarily ogling. It's often, like in Bayonetta, to bring that game back up, any sexuality in that game is the character's means of control. It's her toying with the world's perception of her. Yeah. Now, whether or not that is exactly the intention of the writers of the game, I don't know. But in world, that is the character's motivation. I think that's worth it to at least consider when you're talking about this type of thing.
But then don't forget, you always have Leisure Suit Larry.
Oh, jeez.
That's actually satire. Like,
That's true.
That was making fun of everything that's in that game, but nobody took it that way.
Right.
So we're getting close to the end of the our time here with Peter, so we wanted to take some of your questions here.
Yeah, this is from some of the guys in the Inception chat room. Ryan writes in, says, what do you guys, Peter specifically, what do you guys think of the snafu with the game Hatred, the game itself, and the implication of its gameplay? While I believe it's protected by the First Amendment, I don't agree its killing is the same as Grand Theft Auto.
Or even Postal, for that matter.
Postal usually tends to get tacked. Usually gets tacked with that game.
Yeah, they like to say that Postal and Hatred are the same thing. They're not the same thing. Again, Postal is satire. At least on some degree, it's satire. I don't know if it's entirely satire, but Hatred is essentially a mass killing simulator. It's not really, doesn't have a context. It's pretty much there's schools, there's offices, and you go in, you kill everybody. Wow, that's fun. Essentially, like when they say video games don't breed bad people, I think 10 years ago that was true. I think that people kind of generally understood this is just a game. But I think when you do stuff like this, well, it is protected under free speech, and I'm not going to contest that. I think that it's ridiculous to contest that. We do have to talk, is it responsible? Because a lot of the people who are playing this type of game and enjoying this type of game and advocating for this type of game, because it did get pulled from Steam, and they got it put back on Steam because they advocated a great deal for it. Mm-hmm. But which is unfortunate.
Right.
But the idea is that you're kind of talking about people who are this vocal minority that we were talking about earlier that kind of treats everyone like crap.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So really, do they need this kind of an outlet? And that's what it is. It is an outlet for that, the kind of stuff that really shouldn't be encouraged.
Right. Well, that's the thing.
Well, Ryan made a couple comments, which I think are worth mentioning, just getting your take on it. And then I've got one more question, and I'll cut it loose. Ryan said, remembered when the VA tech shooting happened, they found out that Chow had been an active Counter-Strike player. Mm-hmm. So now the media and then, of course, people at the time were all over it, saying he was playing a violent video game, and that which caused him to go and assassinate people.
But at the same time, Counter-Strike has context. It's about something. It's about good guys, bad guys. It's about things like that. Whereas if you go to the Wikipedia entry for Hatred, it's literally like, this is against political correctness. This is against vivid color in video games. This is like it's just against a bunch of things. There's no like sides in it. There's no story that is mentioned anyway. I certainly haven't played it because I don't think it's even out yet.
No, it's only seen the trailer.
Yeah, I've seen the trailer. It doesn't really seem to have a story. It seems to just be like, killing's great. Ha ha! That's basically it.
Right, and you know, the thing with that, I mean, here's the thing. He was a college student, right? We're talking about that one.
Mm-hmm.
And,
yeah.
Hatred. I mean, a lot of
the Virginia Tech shooter.
The Virginia Tech shooter. Sorry. I mean, tons of college kids play that game. I mean, you can't base it
exactly.
It's like the most popular game on Steam.
Yeah, you can't just base that off of it. There was obviously a lot more things, but I think you kind of hit it on the head when you mentioned the encouragement. When you come out with a game that's flat out about doing this, I mean, Grand Theft Auto. You know, he brought up Grand Theft Auto. Grand Theft Auto is satirical. It's still very lifelike, but it's satirical, and it's still you're never
given the impression that you're a good person in it.
Right, exactly.
Whereas this is kind of advocating for like hating things.
Right, like the trailer opens up with a guy like the world is awful and I hate everybody and everyone deserves to die, and then it just cuts to a whole bunch of him.
Yeah, and that's it. There's the story,
and that's it. And that encourages people to think, oh, well, this game says it's okay or whatever.
And the thing is that people that wouldn't be influenced by a game to do something like this aren't going to be influenced by it. Mm-hmm. But the people that need that push, that Counter-Strike even provided for this gentleman, if indeed that was the cause of it, there's going to be more of that with this game than there would be with a game that has actual context. Right. And this is, a military simulator where you're going after terrorists that have threatened our very way of life, for instance. Like, it's different. It's very different. Yeah. And that's, again, like, to say that art has no influence over culture is the same thing as saying, hatred can't influence anyone. Art does have influence over culture. Everything everybody says has influence over culture, whether it's art or not, even. But art specifically is made with the idea of the artist. Right. They have views, they have things, and whether they consciously do it or not, they inject their views, they inject their perspective into their art. Video games are no different than that. Although a lot more people make them, all of those people have things that going on in their head that it gets expressed in the thing that they're making. It's inevitable.
Yep.
And when you kind of direct culture in the way that hatred is directing culture, it's basically saying everything that is good is bad. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, no,
it's
definitely.
like even in barely any video games have vivid color anymore. And one of the points that the creator of this game makes is he's tired of games with vivid color. It's like 20% of video games have vivid color in them at this point. It's almost like 1 out of every 5 or less. Colorful. Everything's like brown and green and gray.
Right.
And
couldn't you make another game?
Yeah. And this guy is like, I can't stand how many of these games. Like, well, you're talking about like a very small minority of games.
Right.
For one. Like, very few games are colorful at this point in time. And I think that represents what this type of person is making almost more than anything else.
Right.
And to say that, it doesn't even sound like a violence issue or a personal opinion issue. It's like, you're against something that represents diversity or goodness in different things. Whenever you see like a colorful game, it's trying to be interesting in more than one way.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And that type of thing, to be rebelling against that when it's not even the majority of games, seems really vindictive and angry.
Totally.
Well, like, I'm not going to pretend to know what goes through this particular developer's head. You know, maybe it is some way to vent or kind of...
It could be.
You know, or however it is, but it just feels very uninspired, not very thought-provoking, and frankly, it just seems like clickbait. You know what I mean? Like,
definitely.
They just want attention, and, like, this is how they get it, you know?
I agree with you. I am 100% on board with it. It does sound like clickbait. If you really... Game is about hating everything.
Yeah.
On BuzzFeed.
Exactly.
Game is about hating top 10 reasons to hate everything.
Did you have another question?
One real quick question. It says, guys, how do you feel about Bethesda's Dishonored and whether they think Bethesda's, sorry.
You're fine.
And whether they think the title will be extended.
Will it be extended?
You mean like a sequel?
Well, I don't know. The DLC for that was great.
Yeah, I beat the game. I didn't play the DLC.
It's really good.
Oh, really?
It's you play as Dowd, you know, the
bad
villain for the last half of it.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And the storytelling is as good, if not better, than the rest of the game. And the game itself is awesome.
Oh, interesting.
I love the acting in it. I love the story in it.
Yeah. I mean,
it's even kind of a typical story, and yet it's still really enjoyable.
It's just done so well.
Yeah, exactly.
And they even
more.
pulled like Susan Sarandon, I think, is in that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, there's a lot of
she's like the blind person.
fairly high-profile people in it.
Yeah, I haven't heard any news about them making more though.
They are making a sequel to it.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well then there you go.
I don't know exactly what capacity, whether they're going to extend Corvo's story or they're going to extend, but I do know they're making a sequel. That's a game actually specifically I keep up with. So.
Oh, cool. Well, that's good. Well then, yeah, follow
So it's good.
follow Peter to find out more about that. So
Big
cool.
into
We
Dishonored.
have
That was actually a great game.
Yeah, we have another question here, and then we're gonna wrap it up a little bit with Peter, but we still have 2 more hours of the show. But but we want to make sure Peter says some final words and where you can find more about him. But we have another question here. Does Peter like Angry Bird, the Angry Bird games?
Yes. Oh, definitely. Angry Birds is fun. How can you not like Angry Birds? Like, if you talk about the example of how to do mobile gaming correctly, it's Angry Birds. It's it's so like it's simple, but it's really not simple.
Do you think that's why it's so popular?
Yeah, I definitely think that. And like, if you want to go to even further simple, and further more complicated, go with Flappy Bird.
Yeah.
Which is the simplest concept you can think of, but it's so hard. And it's really, like, these types of it's much simpler than Angry Birds. Angry Birds, though, I like it because it's a puzzle game that doesn't feel like a puzzle game.
Right.
It feels like something alive and moving, and you can pick it up whenever you want. You can put it down really quick. You can play it for hours. I've played Angry Birds literally for hours at a time, and I've played it for minutes at a time.
And what's cool too that I like about it is like it doesn't seem. I mean, it is like certain situations are the same, but wherever it happens, it always seems like something different happens every single time. Which
it
is pretty
seems
awesome.
like you're doing, like, even sometimes with the angles, like you'll do something, you think it's the exact same angle, and it doesn't. It doesn't do the same thing. It's like, no, it's real because it's an actual physics engine. It's not like fake.
Right.
That's what's neat about it.
Yeah, it's way cool. Well, all right. We have. Sorry. Did you? Oh, okay. Well, we have the final. Couple minutes here on the show. We just want to thank Peter Coffin for coming on and just being awesome. I mean, these 2 hours flew by. What are your plans for the future? I also want to ask you, like, any advice you want to give to people looking into YouTube, things like that.
My plans for the future involve. We were going to talk a little bit about it. The Patreon. Right. I think that Patreon is kind of the future of the smaller type YouTube person because ad revenue is not massive. You don't get a massive amount of money from ad revenue. So you often will have people very discouraged after trying to get into YouTube. They'll do it for a while. They might become a partner, and you'll see them get like, $20, $30 a month, and they're like, is this really worth my time? Enter Patreon. That type of funding for something. What it is a monthly or by specific creation recurring donation. So let's say you want to donate $1 a month, or $1 a video, or $1 a webcomic, or $1 a novella, or $1 a whatever. There's literally so many different things on there. There's one guy that does a cappella versions of old game music, and it's great. And he gets a lot of money. And I think I'm kind of advocating for that type of thing.
So, yeah, you can definitely find him on there. YouTube.com/Peter Coffin. Follow him on Twitter, petercoffin.com. And we have a couple seconds here left. So thank you so much, Peter.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. It was an honor to have you here tonight.
No, thanks for having me. I had a really fun time.